The door slammed shut behind Archer with a finality that cut through the humid Chicago air like a knife. "Don't ever show your face here again, you disgusting faggot." His father's furious words replayed in his mind on an endless loop as he dragged his heavy suitcase down the cracked sidewalk, rain soaking his clothes and mixing with the hot tears streaming down his face. At 24, Archer had finally mustered the courage to come out to his conservative family in their small Illinois town, only to be met with rejection so brutal it left him homeless and heartbroken in the bustling city he had fled to for a fresh start. His mother had cried silently, but his father and brothers stood firm in their traditional beliefs, calling it a phase or a sin that had no place in their home. With nowhere to go and only a few $100s in his pocket, Archer wandered aimlessly for hours, the weight of his suitcase mirroring the heaviness in his chest. He pushed open the door to a small, inviting coffee shop called Haven Brews on a quiet corner in Wicker Park, the bell jingling softly above him. The aroma of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls wrapped around him like a comforting embrace, a stark contrast to the cold rejection he had just faced. Behind the counter stood a man in his mid-30s, tall and broad-shouldered with neatly trimmed dark hair and kind green eyes that lit up the room. Joseph, as the name tag read, looked up from wiping the espresso machine and froze, his face draining of color as he stared at Archer. "Can I help you?" Joseph asked, his voice steady but his hands trembling slightly. Archer approached the counter, his voice hoarse from crying. "Just a coffee, black, please. And maybe some directions to a cheap motel." Joseph poured the coffee without breaking eye contact, sliding it across the counter. "On the house. You look like you've had a rough day. I'm Joseph, owner here. What's your name?" Archer hesitated, sipping the hot liquid that warmed his insides. "Archer. Archer Thompson." At the mention of the last name, Joseph's eyes widened in shock. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Thompson? As in Robert Thompson's son?" Archer nodded, confused. "Yeah, how do you know my dad?" Joseph swallowed hard, his expression a mix of pain and recognition. "Because your father was my first love. Back in college, we were together for 2 years before he chose the straight path, married your mother, and cut all ties. You look just like him at that age. It's like seeing a ghost." The words hit Archer like a freight train, his coffee cup nearly slipping from his hands. His father, the strict, unyielding man who had just thrown him out for being gay, had once loved another man? The revelation spun his world upside down, opening a floodgate of questions and emotions he wasn't prepared for. Joseph noticed his distress and quickly came around the counter, placing a gentle hand on Archer's shoulder. "Hey, take a breath. I know this is a lot. Why don't you sit down? The shop closes in an hour, but you can stay. Actually, I have a small apartment upstairs. You can crash there tonight if you need to. No strings attached." Archer, too exhausted and shocked to refuse, nodded numbly. As Joseph led him through the back door to the cozy one-bedroom above the shop, Archer wondered if this chance meeting was fate or just another cruel twist. Little did he know, this was the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything he thought he knew about love, family, and himself. Over the next few days, Joseph proved to be more than just a kind stranger. He offered Archer a job as a barista, teaching him the ropes of latte art and customer service with patience that felt almost paternal, yet laced with something deeper. They spent evenings talking over late-night coffees, Archer sharing the pain of his coming out and the years of hiding who he was. Joseph listened intently, revealing bits of his own past, how he had come out young, faced similar rejection from his family, and built this shop as his safe haven. The unexpected connection through Archer's father created an instant bond, but it also stirred confusion in Archer's heart. Was Joseph's kindness genuine, or was he just trying to make amends for the past? Archer found himself drawn to Joseph's calm strength, the way his laughter filled the room, and the subtle glances that lingered a second too long. Meanwhile, Archer's best friend from back home, Mike, texted him constantly, urging him to apologize and come back, promising the family would forgive if he fixed himself. But Archer knew better. The wounds were too deep. One evening, as Joseph and Archer closed the shop, a misunderstanding arose when Archer overheard Joseph on the phone mentioning Robert's son and how he owed it to him. Hurt, Archer assumed Joseph saw him only as a reminder of lost love, not as his own person. Is this all because of my dad? Archer confronted him, voice cracking. Joseph sighed, pulling out an old photo from a drawer, a young Joseph and Robert smiling arm in arm at a college party. It's more than that now, Archer. But I understand if you need space. The air thickened with unspoken feelings as Archer retreated to his room, questioning if he could ever trust this new connection. The days blurred into a routine that slowly began to heal the raw edges of his pain. Yet every glance at Joseph reminded him of the secret that bound them in ways he was only starting to understand. Customers came and went, their smiles and small talk pulling Archer out of his head, teaching him that life continued even when his own felt shattered. Joseph watched quietly, offering encouragement without pushing, his presence a steady anchor in the storm Archer was still navigating. Archer woke the next morning to the smell of fresh pancakes wafting up from the shop below. Joseph had left a note on the kitchen counter. Breakfast is ready downstairs whenever you are. Take your time. The gesture felt too thoughtful, too intimate for someone who was essentially a stranger tied to his father's hidden past. Archer dressed quickly and headed down, finding Joseph flipping pancakes with practiced ease behind the counter during the quiet morning lull. "Morning," Joseph said with a warm smile that reached his eyes. "Figured you could use something real after yesterday." They ate together at a small table by the window, the city waking up outside with honking cars and hurried pedestrians. Archer opened up more, describing the endless arguments at home, the way his brothers had looked at him with disgust, and the fear that he would never be enough for anyone. Joseph shared his own story of leaving home at 18 after his parents discovered his orientation, building Haven Brews from nothing with sheer determination and a few loyal friends who became his chosen family. As the week progressed, Archer threw himself into the job, learning to pull perfect espresso shots and charm the regulars who quickly noticed the new barista's genuine smile. One afternoon, a kind older woman named Mrs. Elena complimented his latte art and asked if he was new in town. "Just arrived," Archer replied, and for the first time the words didn't feel like a confession of failure. Joseph watched from the register, pride flickering across his face. In the evenings they cooked simple meals together upstairs, Joseph teaching Archer his grandmother's recipe for spaghetti while soft jazz played from an old speaker. Their conversations flowed easily, touching on books, music, and dreams Archer had buried long ago. Yet the photo of his father and Joseph haunted him, creating a barrier he couldn't quite name. Was this growing closeness real, or was he just filling a void left by Robert Thompson? The misunderstanding from the phone call lingered until Joseph addressed it directly one night after closing. "That call was to my sister, Archer. I told her about you because I wanted advice on how to help without making you feel like a project. Your dad. He broke my heart when he left, but I never stopped caring about what happened to his family. Meeting you feels like the universe giving me a chance to do right by the past." Archer's defenses cracked. "I want to believe that," he admitted, "but everything is so confusing right now." Joseph nodded, respecting the space, but the air between them hummed with possibility. Meanwhile, Mike's texts grew insistent, and one day he showed up unannounced at the shop, eyes narrowing at the easy familiarity between Archer and Joseph. "Dude, your family is worried sick." "This guy? He knew your dad? Come on, let's get you home." Archer stood firm, sending Mike away, but the encounter planted seeds of doubt that would soon sprout into bigger trouble. Joseph sensed the tension and suggested a walk along the lakefront the next day off. The wind whipped off Lake Michigan as they strolled, Archer opening up about wanting to study graphic design someday, a dream his father had dismissed as frivolous. Joseph encouraged him, even offering to help with applications using connections from old college friends. As the sun dipped low, their shoulders brushed accidentally, sending a spark through Archer that he quickly dismissed. Back at the apartment, Joseph pulled out more old letters from a box, reading passages where Robert had confessed his fears about living openly. Archer listened, tears forming, realizing his father's anger stemmed from his own unresolved pain. The revelation deepened their bond, yet Archer pulled back, afraid of what his heart was beginning to whisper. The shop buzzed with weekend crowds the following day, keeping them busy, but every shared glance across the counter felt heavier, richer with unspoken emotion. Archer began to see Joseph not just as a link to his past, but as someone who saw him fully, flaws and all. Weeks turned into a fragile new normal for Archer. The apartment above Haven Brews started to feel like home, with his sketches pinned to the walls and Joseph's collection of vinyl records filling the living room with melody each evening. Customers had begun to recognize him as the new guy with the great smile, and tips rolled in steadily, giving him a small sense of independence. Joseph remained patient, never pressuring, but his quiet support chipped away at Archer's walls. One rainy afternoon, when the shop was empty, Joseph taught Archer how to make the perfect cappuccino foam, their hands brushing as he guided the milk pitcher. The touch lingered, and for a moment neither pulled away. "You're a natural," Joseph said softly, his voice carrying a warmth that made Archer's pulse quicken. That evening, over takeout Thai food, Archer asked the question that had been burning inside him. "Did my dad ever mention me in those letters?" Joseph hesitated, then pulled out a faded envelope. "Not directly, but he wrote about wanting a son who could live freely. I think he knew deep down he couldn't give that to you." The words brought a mix of anger and sorrow, but also clarity. Archer realized his father's rejection was more about his own regrets than Archer's identity. The conversation stretched late into the night, ending with Joseph placing a reassuring hand on Archer's knee. "You're not defined by his choices, Archer. You get to write your own story now." The gesture felt electric, and Archer found himself leaning in slightly before catching himself and retreating to bed, heart racing with confusion and longing. The next morning brought unexpected trouble. Mike returned, this time with Archer's older brother Derek in tow. They stormed into the shop during the morning rush, demanding Archer come home and stop this nonsense. Derek glared at Joseph. "You filled his head with ideas, didn't you? Just like you did with Dad back then." Joseph stayed calm, offering them coffee and a chance to talk, but the confrontation escalated when Derek revealed he had found old emails proving Joseph's past with their father. Customers watched uncomfortably as Archer defended Joseph, his voice steady for the first time. "He didn't fill my head with anything. He showed me it's okay to be who I am." Mike shook his head in betrayal. "I thought we were friends, man. Your family needs you." The group left after Joseph politely asked them to leave, but the damage was done. Archer felt the sting of Mike's disloyalty, realizing his old life was truly fracturing. Joseph closed the shop early that day, sensing Archer needed space. They sat on the rooftop terrace overlooking the city skyline, the distant hum of traffic a soothing backdrop. "I'm sorry you had to go through that," Joseph said. "I never wanted to cause more pain." Archer turned to him. "I searching. You didn't. But seeing them here, it made me question everything again." Joseph shared more about the sacrifice he had made letting Robert go, choosing silence to protect the life his ex had built. The honesty cracked something open in Archer. For the first time, he reached out and took Joseph's hand. "Thank you for not running from this." The moment stretched, charged with possibility, but Joseph gently pulled back, respecting Archer's healing process. Later that night, alone in his room, Archer stared at the ceiling, the weight of growing feelings mixing with fear of another rejection. The shop's routine continued, but now every interaction carried deeper meaning, every shared laugh a step towards something neither had planned. Archer began sketching designs inspired by the coffee shop, channeling his emotions into art that Joseph praised quietly, their connection strengthening through small, meaningful gestures rather than grand declarations. The misunderstanding deepened when Archer found an old journal entry Joseph had left out by mistake. It detailed the pain of losing Robert and a quiet vow to watch over any child who might need guidance. Archer's insecurities flared. "So, I'm just a promise you made to my dead father?" he accused one morning before opening the shop. Joseph looked stricken. "It started that way, yes. But it's so much more now. You've become your own person in my eyes, Archer. Strong, kind, talented." The argument left them both raw, and for 2 days they moved around each other in careful silence, the shop's usual warmth feeling strained. Customers noticed the tension, with Mrs. Elena gently asking if everything was okay. Archer threw himself into work, perfecting new drink recipes and redesigning the menu board with his sketches, small acts of creation that helped him process the hurt. Joseph broke the silence first by inviting Archer to a quiet art exhibit downtown featuring local LGBTQ artists. The gallery walls were filled with pieces exploring identity and love, mirroring their own unspoken story. Standing before a painting of two figures reaching across a divide, Joseph whispered, "This reminds me of us. The past pulling us together while we try to step forward." Archer felt the truth in those words, his anger dissolving into understanding. On the walk home through twinkling city lights, their hands brushed again, and this time Archer didn't pull away. "I believe you," he said simply. The admission marked a turning point, allowing tentative closeness to return. They cooked together again, laughter echoing as Joseph burned the garlic bread and Archer teased him mercilessly. Yet external pressures mounted. Archer's mother called, her voice tearful, begging him to reconsider and come home for a family talk. Archer refused gently but firmly, explaining that Haven Brews and Joseph had given him the acceptance his blood family never could. The call ended in strained silence, leaving Archer drained. Joseph offered quiet comfort, suggesting they take a day trip to the Indiana dunes for fresh air. On the beach, wind whipping through their hair, they talked about futures. Archer admitted his dream of applying to art school, and Joseph promised to help with references. As waves crashed nearby, Archer turned to Joseph. "You've shown me what real support looks like. I don't know what I'd do without you." Joseph's eyes softened, but he held back, still cautious of the age and history between them. Back at the shop, a new regular named Tyler started flirting openly with Archer, sparking a flicker of jealousy in Joseph that he tried to hide. Archer noticed and confronted it lightly. "He's just a customer. You're the one I talk to every night." The reassurance eased the tension, but it highlighted the growing romantic undercurrent neither had named. One evening after closing, as rain pattered against the windows, Joseph pulled out a box of unsent letters he had written to Robert over the years, but never mailed. Reading one aloud revealed the depth of his enduring love and the regret that had shaped his solitary life. Archer listened, tears falling, and in that vulnerable moment reached for Joseph's hand again. "Maybe it's time we both stop living in the past." The words hung between them, heavy with promise, as the storm outside mirrored the emotional one inside. Their bond had evolved from shock and obligation to something tender and real, tested by doubts, but strengthened by honesty. Archer felt himself growing, no longer the scared young man kicked out into the rain, but someone ready to claim his place in the world with Joseph by his side. The climax arrived without warning on a busy Saturday afternoon. The shop door burst open as Archer's father, mother, and brothers entered, faces set in determination. Robert Thompson locked eyes with Joseph across the counter, the years melting away in an instant of raw recognition. "You," Robert growled, voice low but carrying through the crowded space. "You've turned my son against us." Customers fell silent, phones hovering as the confrontation unfolded. Archer stepped forward, heart pounding. "Dad, stop. Joseph didn't turn me against anyone. He gave me a place when you threw me out." His mother pleaded tearfully, while Derek accused Joseph of manipulation. Joseph remained composed, inviting them to the back room for privacy, but Robert refused, demanding Archer leave immediately. In the heat of the moment, Archer revealed what he had learned. "I know about you and Joseph, Dad. The letters, the college years. You can't hate me for being what you were too afraid to embrace." The truth landed like a bomb. Robert's face crumpled, years of suppressed pain surfacing as he admitted in a broken voice that he had loved Joseph deeply but chose the right path for the family's sake, a decision that haunted him every day. "I was wrong to push you away, son. Seeing you here, it forces me to face what I ran from." Joseph stood quietly, offering no accusation, only quiet understanding. The family argument spilled into tears and raised voices, but Archer held his ground, refusing to leave the life he had built. Mike's earlier betrayal paled compared to this raw honesty. As tensions peaked, Joseph spoke up, his voice steady. "I never wanted to come between you. But Archer deserves to choose his own happiness." The words resonated, and slowly the family began to listen. Archer's mother hugged him tightly, whispering apologies, while his brothers shifted uncomfortably, processing the revelations. Robert extended a shaky hand to Joseph. "I never stopped thinking about what we had. Thank you for being there for my boy. The gesture marked a fragile bridge, not full acceptance, but a crack in the wall of rejection. The family left with promises to talk more later, leaving the shop in stunned silence. Archer collapsed into a chair, exhausted but lighter, the weight of secrets finally lifted. Joseph knelt beside him, wiping a tear from his cheek. You were incredible today. Facing them like that. You've grown so much. In the aftermath, Archer and Joseph closed the shop and retreated upstairs. The evening unfolded with quiet reflection, sharing memories and fears. Archer admitted the jealousy he felt seeing Joseph interact with others, and the fear that their connection was built only on the past. Joseph confessed his own hesitation, worried about the age difference and the shadow of Robert. Yet in that honest exchange, they chose each other. This is real, Joseph said, pulling Archer close in a gentle embrace. Not because of your father, but because of who you are. The moment felt like the turning point Archer had been searching for, a blend of romance and deep understanding that promised healing. They sat together watching the city lights, the earlier chaos giving way to peace. Archer realized his journey had led him not just to acceptance from others, but to loving himself enough to claim the future he deserved. The shop below, once a refuge, now symbolized their shared home, a testament to the family one chooses when blood falls short. The following weeks brought gradual healing. Archer's mother visited alone one Sunday, bringing homemade cookies and genuine questions about his life. She met Joseph properly, thanking him for the kindness that had saved her son. Conversations were careful but hopeful, planting seeds for future reconciliation. Archer's brothers texted sporadically, awkward but trying, while his father sent a short note admitting his mistakes without full details. The family ties were mending slowly, not erased but transformed. At the shop, business boomed as word spread of the dramatic scene, turning Haven Brews into a local symbol of community and acceptance. Archer enrolled in community college art classes, his sketches evolving into professional designs that Joseph proudly displayed on the walls. Their relationship deepened naturally, marked by small romantic gestures. Joseph surprising Archer with tickets to a gallery opening, Archer cooking Joseph's favorite meal after a long day. One crisp autumn evening on the rooftop, surrounded by string lights Archer had hung, Joseph took his hand. You've changed everything for me, Archer. I thought I'd live with the past forever, but you've given me a future. Archer smiled, leaning in until their foreheads touched. And you've shown me that love doesn't have to hurt. Their first kiss was soft and full of promise, the city humming below as witness to a love forged in fire and strengthened by truth. No dramatic declarations, just quiet certainty that they belonged together. Archer's best friend Mike eventually reached out with an apology, admitting his betrayal stemmed from fear of losing their friendship. Archer forgave him, but the friendship had evolved, now based on mutual respect rather than old expectations. The shop became a gathering place for friends old and new, a space where stories of struggle and triumph were shared over coffee. Archer felt truly seen, his journey from rejection to self-acceptance complete in ways he never imagined. Joseph, too, found closure, the ghost of his first love no longer haunting but honoring the man he had become. Together they faced the world, proving that family could be chosen and love could heal the deepest wounds. As leaves fell and winter approached, Archer stood behind the counter one morning, watching Joseph greet customers with that familiar warm smile. The man who had once been a shocking revelation was now his partner, his anchor, his home. Life in modern America still held challenges, but Archer had learned that courage and honesty paved the way forward. Their story wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, built on sacrifice, understanding, and the beautiful mess of human connection. True or false, the family that rejects you can never be replaced by the one you build yourself?